Okay, so everything should be working now, but when we get to the end of the game, we have no way to restart the game. So let me run through this real quick. Okay, so I completed the game, but now I can't move, the arrows don't work, there's no way for me to restart it other than to come up here, stop it, and then start again, which is fine for testing it within Unity, but once we publish this and somebody's playing on the web, the only way to restart would be to refresh the web page, and that's a pain. You don't want to do that. So what we're going to do is add the ability to press the R key to refresh or restart the game. So to do that, the first thing we need to do is go into our UI manager. Well, actually, sorry, the first thing we need to do is actually add a text box that says restart. So I'm going to go to the canvas and right click on it and go down to UI just like we did for the score, and all the way down to legacy again and text. And you can see that it actually put it right in the middle of the screen for me. If it didn't, just like we did with the score, we can drag it where we want it. But first, let me rename this to, I'll just call it restart, since that's what it's going to be. Okay, and then let me go back to my scene where I can actually edit. And once again, you'll need to zoom way out to see it. So if it's not centered, you can use the arrow keys or the move tool here and the arrows to drag it where you want it. Or you can also come up here and you can see right here we have the option to choose where we want it positioned on the screen. So I can choose center, and that is exactly where I want it. So I'm going to change the text to restart game or something like that, or yeah, I'll just do that, restart game. And then I'm going to increase the font again. Let's try something bigger than the score, not 660. And just like last time, we cannot see the text now, so I need to go up to my rectangle tool and make it bigger to make sure I can see it. And then I'm going to need to try to recenter it. It's not going to, so let me use my tools here. There we go, it looks like that's about centered. I'm going to change the font color to white again so it shows up in my dark scene. Or maybe I could have done yellow, but yeah, white's good enough. All right, so we now have the text. Now I need to go to my UI manager and I need to add some code to make this work. So UI manager. My UI manager needs to know now where that restart text box is, just like it needed to know where the score text box was. So we're going to do the exact same thing we did for the score text box, do a serialized field. And I'll call this restart again. Now when we start the game, let me just go ahead and save this and go back and show you what's going to happen. And actually, before I press play, I just realized that my message restart game doesn't make sense. I don't know what I was thinking. Let's click back on that. I need to tell them how to restart the game. That would make a little bit more sense. So press R to restart game. That's going to make a little bit more sense. And then let's go back and resize this again. Now at this point we could decide to make this wide enough for it to all fit on one line, or you could wrap it around. Entirely up to you how you decide to do this. I think I'm going to have it wrap around like this, and then I'm going to center the text within the box. And then try to center the box there. Okay, that message makes a little more sense. Okay, so when I go to play the game, the message is going to show up right away, and that's obviously not ideal because we don't want that to show up until the end. So what I'm going to do, going back to my UI manager, in the start method, I'm going to add this line of code. Restart, okay, my variable name, dot game object, and that is a capital O, dot set active, the S and the A are both capital, false. So what this is going to do is set this to false for the active, so that means it's no longer active. So if I save this now and jump back into my game, let that reload, press play again. nothing happens, and that's because I'm getting an error because I forgot a very important step. And that step is to obviously go back to my UI manager, which is on the canvas, and tell it where my restart is. And I renamed that, but now it's back to text. So I may rename it again. Restart. There we go. So click on my canvas. I need to drag that restart down into the restart variable so it knows where to find the restart text box. And now it knows which object I'm wanting to set to false. And there we go. It's no longer active. All right, so that's step one. Now, obviously, we need to make it active again when we hit the finish line, and then we need to enable the R key to be able to actually restart the game. So going back to our UI manager again, I need to create a new method. So this is going to be another public void, and I'll call this show restart. And in there, I'll paste in that same line that I just created up here. The only difference now is I'm going to change this to true. Okay, so I now have a public method, show restart, which will show the restart text box. But where do I want to call that? Well, I want to call it when the game is over. And where's my game over function? Well, my game over function is in the car script. So I go back to my car script and scroll down. Here's my game over. I already have a serialized field for the UI manager, so it's already connected to that script that has my show restart. So all I need to do now is just use my variable name for that, UI dot show restart, and there we go. So now when that game over function gets triggered, it will now show my restart message. Lastly, I need to actually activate the R key. So right now the message will pop up saying press R to show it, but nothing's going to happen. So let's go back and take a look at the scenes management stuff in our game. So if I go up to File and go to Build Settings, these are the scenes in my build. Now, I've not built the game yet. One of our future videos, possibly the next one, I'll show you how to build the game. But before we can build the game, we need to tell it what scenes should be included, and there's none visible right now. So what I need to do is click on Add Open Scenes, and there we go. We can see that I never changed the name of my scene. It's just the default scene that got created, and it is just called Sample Scene. So I could use the name of the scene, Sample Scene, or I can just use the scene number, which is 0, and that's what I'm going to use. So what I'm going to be telling this to do is when R gets pressed, I want it to go back and play scene 0. So we're going to do that back in the UI Manager script again. So go ahead and go back to UI Manager again. Okay, and then in the UI Manager, we're going to go down to the update function, which looks like I actually got rid of that. So I need to recreate my void update. And then I'm going to put in an if statement that says if input with capital I dot get key down, the G, K, and D are all capitalized, and then the key we're looking for is R. So the way I specify R is I say keycode.R, key code capital K, capital C. So if the R key gets pressed, what do I want it to do? Well, what I want it to do is to go to the scene manager and load scene 0. So scene manager is capital S, capital M, load scene, capital L, capital S. Now if I try to save this and run this right now, I'm actually going to get an error. Let's see if it gives it to me right away. It doesn't. Let me go refresh it here and see. There we go. So the name scene manager does not exist. So what I need to do is actually come up here and import the scene management library. So Unity engine dot scene management, and that will load the scene manager, scene management library. And if I save this now and go back, I should hopefully see no errors, and there we go, no errors. Okay, so that's all we should have to do. So we now have our show restart being called in the game over, so it should show our message that says press R to restart the game. And then our UI manager script is constantly listening to see if the R key gets pressed. So that actually means that we could press R at any point in our game and it'll go back to the beginning. We don't have to wait till the end. Our message just doesn't show up until the end, but somebody could restart it at any point. So let's save this and test it now and see if this is working. Okay, so I start driving down my road, I press R, and I think I know what I did. Yes, I was typing and talking and not paying attention, and when I did the update function, I did not capitalize the U. So let's capitalize the U, save it, and go back and test it again. Okay, driving down the road, I'll press R, there we go. As I was falling, I hit R, and it restarted, sent me back to the beginning. And then we can run through it real quick, go all the way to the end, make sure our message pops back up when we hit the finish line. And there we go. Press R to restart the game. So now our game is pretty much done. We can build it, upload it, and then have people play it and test it out. There are obviously a lot of additional features that you could choose to add. And there are a couple other things that I may point out that we have some little glitches in the game that we could try to work on and fix. But for our first game, we've made a lot of progress and learned a lot.